Chicago, what do you say? It's the CHGO Cubs Podcast presented by DraftKings, America's top-rated sportsbook. Download the app. Use the promo code CHGO when you sign up. Luke Stuckmeyer, Ryan Herrera, Cody Del Mendo on a Cubs off-day Thursday. Oh, yeah. But lots to talk about. We are 2 weeks after opening day, and who could have ever expected this much stuff would happen in a 2-week period to start the season for the Cubs? We got a lot to talk about, including the Ian Happ extension and how it impacts the future of the Cubs moving forward. We're going to do sort of a projected lineup if nothing else happens. We'll get to that. That'll make some people angry.
Yep.
But it's vibes, Cody. It's really vibes. Summertime
vibes are great. Also, like the Cubs needed an off day, I needed an off day because I think I've had alcohol for like 6 straight days. I needed an off day.
You do. And I need an off day from the sweets, so I'm going to eat healthy today. Listen, best way to be part of the experience is the YouTube chat, which is already blowing up here on a Thursday afternoon. We appreciate that. Make sure you subscribe to the CHGO Sports YouTube page. Like it, review it, all those things. Spotify as well, please. A 5-star review is the only thing that's acceptable.
5 stars.
4s are for losers. We don't want 4s. Only 5s and thumbs up.
Please 5s. All
and
5s.
While you're at it, while you're taking care of business on a Thursday afternoon, make sure you sign up to be a diehard. We got the box right there. That's what comes with the card, the free shirt from the merch lock, which we got new merch there for you, new Cubs merch to check out.
Get that diehard card that gets you into the bar and get you free drinks on Stucky.
Sometimes
on
through
Stucky's tab.
Sometimes through TSA at the airport.
Yeah.
If you use it right.
You may not even need pre-check if you got it.
That's right.
You catch them on the right day.
You don't need the real ID garbage, any of that stuff. You throw down that, boom, CHGO diehard card. And
again, don't let the facts get in the way of a good story.
Brent is here, and he agrees with me. So I read his name.
I'm going to start doing this bit, too. Like, if you agree with me, I'll scream your name out. All right?
Cubs off to a 6-5 start, but really, while that's great news, and I will say different, as Cody likes to put it, vibes are around this team than last year. So this year it's more about excitement, energy, hope. Last year was, what was my thing last year I was saying? It was about exploration and evaluation, right? This year, hope, energy, excitement, all of those things, and development, of course. But we've seen all those so far early in the season, but really it's been the off-the-field things that have been just as encouraging. We didn't think deals would get done with Hoerner and Happ once we got through the Cactus League season. Because Jed had pretty much said, it's not a hard deadline, but he didn't want to go through what he did with Anthony Rizzo that kind of left a bad taste, and then it kind of rolled downhill from there. So it wasn't a hard deadline, but what we see is flexibility. He sort of put that soft deadline there, but then he compromised, and so did both players.
Well, and like as far as what he'd said, like throughout the winter, it felt like spring was the hard deadline, and then obviously when it came, like you said, he was flexible. And Nico, Jed said yesterday that Nico's, or the reason that Happ's kind of got pushed back was because they had gotten to a point where they needed to focus on getting that Nico extension done. And like obviously that was the end of spring. I think it was like the day the Cubs left Arizona to fly back to Chicago that was reported that Nico had signed the extension. So that took up the front office's focus. It was just like they were at a better spot to get that deal done with Nico. And he said that they didn't feel that at that point that they were close enough to bridge the gap with Ian's side. And not that he didn't want to get the deal done. It was just like at that point, it was the focus was on Nico. And going into the season is what he said on opening day, that to negotiate in season is going to be on the player, because he's like, he doesn't have to play left field or swing a bat.
Right.
He, the season starting doesn't affect what he does, but it can affect the player. And if the player doesn't want to go through negotiations in season, like we saw with, Anthony Rizzo, I think that was 2021 when Rizzo kind of cut him off going into the season. He respected the fact that some players don't want to do that. Clearly, Ian Happ did. And, I asked Ian about it yesterday, and he said that just the idea that he wants to be here, that he was willing to compromise to be here, to stay here for a few more years, that he said that made it easy to want to be in those negotiations. And Ian Happ was in the negotiations himself a little more than some players are. Some players let the agents handle it. Happ did it, or he wanted to be as involved as he could be in those. So obviously it was like credit to both sides that Jed, like you said, was flexible to allow those negotiations to continue, but also to Happ credit to Happ that even though the season started, and he was playing pretty well, it didn't affect him. Even though the season started, he decided that he wanted to be here enough that he would continue to let those negotiations happen in season.
Right. I think, Sarah, we actually have the soundbite that you got yesterday from Ian Happ. You talk about the compromise of what the Cubs side of it and Jed Hoyer was, right? They did give out a lot of money. It's an AAV over $20 million a season.
Yeah.
So, you go back in line and look at where that stands in baseball. They are paying Ian Happ good money for the prime of his career, right? So that's their compromise. The compromise was when they would talk, all of those things. Our buddy teammate Kevin Wells has the AAV. So Starling Marte would be 9th, top 10 per Spotrac. He's $20,750,000. Nick Castellanos, $20 million right on the dot. Schwarber, $20 million right on the dot. Jock Peterson, 19.6. Brandon Nimmo, 18.5. That's 9, 10, 12, 13. And so you would put Ian Happ right in that mix at just over $20 million. What is it, like 23, 20.3, something like that? So he is getting big guaranteed money that I believe he's earned for the prime of his career, and he basically is giving up a much longer-term contract. But, Sarah, do you have that, why he chose to make his side of, I guess he gave back. He gave and the Cubs gave.
Yeah, I think that's the part of an extension right there is compromise. So for me, it's compromising on structure. It's compromising on term and, taking something that is 3 years and, runs through baseball prime and, having to go back out the market in 32. But that's was my concession to be here. I really, really wanted to continue to wear this uniform. I really wanted to play with this group of guys, with Nico and Seiya and Tyon and Dansby and like the guys that are going to be here, like that part of it, and then the city and the fan base and like what it means. Like that is the reason why I was willing to discuss a 3-year term, because if that was what was going to get it done, that meant a lot to me.
So Ian Happ, likes what he sees. And we're going to talk a little bit about, does this change the quote-unquote core? Corey and Cody and I talked about it before you joined the podcast a little bit yesterday. I don't know if you can compare this. Everybody wants to say core, right? And I get it. Like, these are going to be names that are under contract, that are there. But I don't know if you can compare it to what was there on the first great Cubs team, right? Like, who would you consider the core of the first Cubs if you're talking about just position players, not pitchers? Obviously, Lester was part of the core. But if you're talking about position players, it was Rizzo, it was Bryant, it was Javi, and then it was, I don't know if you considered Schwarbs as part of the core or Almora as part of the core. I would say that the fourth guy if you're only doing 4 names for a core, I would say the fourth guy in the core for that first great Cubs team is either Hayward or it's Wilson.
Yeah.
And you can alternate which one it was, but I don't think you can deny that it was Javi, Rizzo, Bryant. So when you look at the new core for the Cubs, they may not be as flashy as Rizzo, Bryant, Javi, and Hayward or Wilson, but Dansby Swanson, Ian Happ, Nico Hoerner, and Seiya Suzuki would be the 4 guys they have that are under contract, reasonable deals, and all types of players that you would like in your organization. All hard workers, all team players, all good teammates, yet they don't maybe Dansby, and maybe the potential for some other guys. They don't have a superstar power like Chris Bryant, who was an MVP in the league or Rookie of the Year. So they don't have that superstar power in that group of 4. But that doesn't mean that person isn't still coming to be added to the core.
Yeah, and I think,
whether that's in the organization or outside the organization.
When you look, and I think you think about those 4, Rizzo, Baez, Bryant, and Wilson. I'd probably go Wilson just because those were the 4 that were in contract negotiations at one point in time the Cubs wanted.
And Sean, we're talking about position players.
Yeah, position players.
Not pitchers. Arrieta and Lester certainly were part of the core. But.
So when you look at those 4, they bring the name value because they won the World Series. Like Happ and Nico weren't around for that. Dansby just came to Chicago. Seiya kind of just came to Chicago. And they at this point don't have the Chris Bryant 2016 MVP, 2017 still had a great year too. They don't have that right now. But you look at those 4, and those 4, Nico, Dansby, Happ, Suzuki. I think you can make an argument that if they have good, like they have all-star potential most years, I would say. I think Nico, especially now that he's at second base, has all-star potential at second base. Dansby's coming off an all-star year. Happ's coming off an all-star year. Seiya, if he kind of lives up to this potential that he showed when he was in Japan, also has all-star potential. And then you look at that previous 4, it's not like they were all-stars every single year. Like, I think Wilson made 3 in 6 or however many years, 7 years it was. Bryant, I don't think he made that 21 and like 18 or 19, obviously 16. Rizzo had a few all-star years, but they weren't perennial all-stars. They weren't like tip top of their position. They're going to be an all-star this year unless something goes horribly wrong. So I wouldn't like put that 4 complete levels above what the Cubs have in those 4. I think
it's not necessarily apples to apples, right?
It's not. No,
like Dansby and Hayward are sort of apples to apples. Bigger money contracts,
big money,
longer term deals, and had proven something at the major league level. Yeah, Cody.
Yeah. Thanks for letting me talk, guys. The new core 4, yeah. I mean, Dansby, Nico, Seiya, and Ian Happ. I think those guys are the guys. Now, comparing them to 2015, 2016 Cubs, I mean, you guys are saying some of those names, like, as the core. I understand that they were the core during that era, but, like, in 2016, I mean, Javi didn't have as big a role on that team until the postseason.
Right.
And Schwarber was out the entire year, so you can't say he was.
That's right.
Barb in the chat said that Almora he barely did anything on that team. And Soler was the same thing. He barely did anything. I would say that it was Bryant, Rizzo, Dexter Fowler, because you go, we go.
Zobrist?
And Zobrist.
I think when you talk about
those
the
are
core,
the 4.
Yeah,
but you're talking about.
I'm talking. You're right in terms
16.
of the era.
Yeah, talking about
you're talking about the era. I'm
Yes.
talking about but I'm talking about the year that they won. The
If
year
you're
that
saying
mattered.
the World Series, you have to say Zobrist.
Yeah,
for
sure.
sure.
MVP.
But I'm just clarifying because people are, someone said Lester.
okay.
We're obviously talking about position players.
Sean's saying the same thing. I
So-
was talking the era more.
Yeah.
Like the teams that went to the NLCS and
I think
the last
that-
great Cubs team.
Right.
Yeah.
So, during that era, you're right about the 4. Baez, Bryant, Rizzo, and Contreras. I would go Contreras on that as well.
Mm-hmm.
But can these 4 guys now, can they one day be somewhat similar to that? It's going to be hard for them to get to that level of greatness. Obviously, they would have to win a World Series. But can these 4 be the guys that help lead this team back to the postseason, back to the NLCS for the first time since 2017 within the next 3 years? Yeah, sure. Obviously, they're going to need more help. They're going to need, like I said yesterday, they're going to need another 1 or 2 impact players. They're going to need some of these prospects to come up and be impact players. Maybe one of these prospects coming up is one of those impact players, which you hope. We hope that Matt Mervis turns into the first baseman of the future. That you can just lock in there for the next 5 years after when he makes his debut. You're hoping that he is that guy, and maybe he becomes one of the core. Mm-hmm. So as we sit here right now, I would say the 4 that we've listed, they are. But I still think that there are other guys that have that potential to be part of that core as well. Yeah. So
Totally agree that it's not it's the current today core of the Cubs franchise for position players. But by the end of the season, or by the end of next season, those four, if you're only saying 4 core players, those 4 core players could totally be different. It might only be 1 or 2 of those guys from currently, and it might be 2 other players. Could PCA come to the major leagues and make such an impact that he becomes a core player instead of somebody else? Well, of course, that's what you're hoping for. Ben Zobrist was part of the core. By the end of the term, he wasn't part of the core.
Hell, I mean, the Cubs obviously hope, or
they thought Hayward.
Cubs fans hope that Shohei Ohtani signs and he becomes part of the core.
He'd be core number 1.
Yeah, he would be number 1.
He would be core number 1 on the list, and that's right. And the Cubs, when they signed him, thought Jason Hayward was one of their core 4.
Yeah.
But it turned out that Wilson was more of that core 4 than Jason Hayward was.
Yeah, the core is like a fluid thing.
Yes.
It's going to be
currently
a fluid
right
thing.
now they have.
That's what they're for.
What they've done is build a core of signed players, which Jed will talk about later. We've got a quote from Ryan. They have a core of 4 players of very good players.
Mm-hmm.
We believe good to very good players. Maybe the ceiling goes above that for some of them. Maybe the ceiling drops or the basement drops a little bit below on some of those. But we believe at the very least they have 4 guys under contract that you can look at and say, yep, we can put them in against any team and we feel good about it. Now, you have to sprinkle in superstars or you're never going to get there. But that's a great place to start.
Of those 4 that they have now, Dansby Swanson is the one that you're like, maybe he can be even better. And so far this season, he has shown that he is. I mean, he's not going to hit 400 all year, but like he is shown to be everything is advertised, and he's won a World Series. He's a proven winner.
He's an all-star, Gold Glove.
Yeah, one of the best defensive shortstops in the league. Like he is the one guy you know what you're going to get out of for sure. Ian Happ proven over the last year and a half that he can be someone you can build around. Nico, the way he started this year, the way he played last year, definitely trending up. I mean, if he ain't at this rate, if he continues to play like this, if he's not at the All-Star game, I'm going to be calling Rob Manfred and rioting. And Seiya Suzuki, obviously he's just got to stay on the field. If Seiya can stay on the field, I don't know. Like, there's a lot of great outfielders in the National League, in all of baseball. Will he be an All-Star? I don't know, but he has, like I said before, he has 30 home run potential. You just got to stay on the field and use that great approach that he has shown off a little bit and just stay healthy and just let everything play out. Yeah. So
I mean,
there's still a lot of like ifs and this and that. So it's hard to like say, are these the 4? But the Cubs are hoping that, and we're hoping that, because if that happens, then that it probably means that they're heading in the right direction.
I don't believe these 4 are their Mount Rushmore of the next great Cubs team. No. But currently, they are the core of the next great Cubs team. It goes all the way back to the start of CHGO when we talked about over and over, build a team with better players, good players.
Yes.
Start building more and more. So they went from like 1 good player to 2 good players. Now we know they have 4 good players. Now you add some of those pitchers in the mix. You go, okay, now I see 5, 6, 7 players. The prospects that group has grown and grown and grown. And you can see how when they get the chance to get that superstar player, maybe Dansby is a superstar, maybe he's not. But I can tell you this much. I after watching him for 2 weeks, which is a short, small sample size, I feel real good about him as a good to very good player. Just like Nico.
Yeah.
And Happ.
Like you said, Cody, it's just like if he feels like everything is advertised. He made that one error the other day that, screwed me and who you got, but whatever. I'm not holding a grudge. He's been a very good shortstop. Like, he's been exactly what you expected to get. When everyone was worried over spring training, we were all just kind of like, it's spring training, guys, like, relax. This is when guys start to get that, the little kinks out the way and get back into game shape. And he is hitting the crap out of the ball. So, not worried about that. He's been very good at the plate, very good on defense. And you mentioned Seiya, and it's weird because it's still so early in his career, even though he's 28 now, maybe
28,
right there. But he's still so young, technically, in like major league terms. But this guy was like one of the great Japanese players. Like, a lot of different teams in the league wanted him, and he showed that April he had last year was unbelievable. I mean, his end of the season, the last month or so, was really, really good. Like, he has shown those flashes that he can be an all-star type player, even though there are a lot of really, really good outfielders in the major leagues, but especially the National League too. I think you can, like, if he can stay healthy, as you mentioned, but just if he can put a season like that together, even if it's the first 3-4 months, going into an all-star break, right? If he can put that kind of season together like he showed in April or in September, like there could be an argument at some point where Seiya Suzuki is right smack dab in the middle of the all-star discussion, and that's what I'm saying is every one of those 4 core players right now has all-star potential, going into any given year. Because you know how good those guys can be when they're at their best. Same thing with Nico. Like, he didn't make the all-star team last year, but there was a legit discussion. Like, is he in that running, like, for most of that season, right? And now he's at second base. That might make it even more. So those guys all have legit all-star potential if they can put it together for at least the first half of the season. But when you're talking about a core foundation group of players as you're trying to get out of this rebuild and into this next great Cubs team, as Jed Hoyer, always talks about, like, that's a good core forward to have. And sure, would you rather have 4 groups of superstar players, a core 4 of superstar players? Of course, but not every team has that. And what they've built so far is a solid core that obviously you hope they continue to build around, maybe even add better pieces. But, like, if that's your foundation, you're at a good spot.
Hey, the Angels have had 2 superstar players and can't even get to the postseason right now.
Right.
What they've built is 4 guys who have very high floors, really high floors. And then you look for the ceiling and you hope that some of them reach the ceiling and get there. So we're going to talk more about how the signing impacts the future for the Cubs, impacts the potential future lineup for the Cubs, and all those things are coming up, and we'll get some takes from the chat as well. A lot of people saying, well, now who's trade bait? Well, yeah, that's what will start the discussion, because some of these contracts are coming with no trade clauses. Ian Happ, no trade clause. Seiya, no trade clause. So these guys want to be here. That's why they took a compromise from the team and said, yep, I'll meet you halfway. Something that necessarily didn't happen all the time with the first team who had won the World Series, and you see why they would have a little more bravado about themselves, a little more full of themselves. Hey, they ended a 108-year drought. This group coming through has not done that, but they want to get there. So we'll see. I'll tell you what gives you a little, let you puff out your chest a little bit. Pins and Aces, the official golf apparel partner of ALLCITY and CHGO. We love our Pins and Aces gear. Get tons of compliments on and off the course. They're family-owned golf and apparel business. They make amazing polos, hats, golf bags, even our favorite beer sleeve, an innovative product that allows you to store not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, 7 beers right inside your golf bag. Keeps those drinks cold the entire round. Check out pinsandaces.com. Use the code CHGO to receive 15% off your first order and get free shipping. That's pinsandaces.com. Tell you what, we got some swag in here from them. What'd you get? Was that a little pullover?
Yeah,
it's
like a fleece hoodie, like with a hood. It's white, has the logo on the left.
You're gonna have some chances to wear that. Yeah, you're gonna have a chance to wear that because it's gonna cool off again.
Yeah, there you go. I was like, how am I trying to say this?
We almost had a nip slip there, but that's all right.
Left pec.
And also, he tickled a little bit too for a second. He was like,
and then our good friend Jake, me and Luke were here the other night, and he brought out a couple more polos that I guess no one took, and I took one of them. So I have.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't think they'd seen them.
Nice.
I don't think they've seen them. We had first look, first dibs.
Maybe.
I've seen some hats rolling around, some more stuff coming in. So
very comfortable
Pins and
stuff.
Aces.
And you can wear it whether you like golf or not.
Well, yeah, on and off the course.
Yeah.
Compliments. You can go out to dinner with them and be like, yeah, look at me, Pins and Aces.
They have these on their website. They have these cool vests. You know how I become a vest guy within the last couple months.
Well, once you hit 30, vests become part of your life.
Yeah, if you're over 30, get your vests on.
So I got a few years. Maybe I just get a head start and get a
I
Pins
would
and Aces
listen. What you do is
you gotta
then people they take you serious. They look and go, "Wow, this guy's serious. Look at that."
That
vest.
or they think you're older, but while at the same time you don't really look like you're 30, so
Well,
you
I
can
think
be
I'm
like
growing this
people
out.
are taking you
growing
more
it out.
serious.
That and a vest could do it.
I just
That
have-
a vest and like $295 benching would.
Oh, man. Oof.
seriousness right there.
Me and Steven are on a race to 300 right now.
300?
He's got a head start on me, but we'll see.
Well, let me tell you, you put on your Pins and Aces gear and you go out to dinner this summer and you're doing a little al fresco dining outside Chicago in summertime weather like this. But you're thinking, well, how am I going to watch the Cubs while I'm out here at the restaurant? You know, we're waiting for our food. We're having a couple cocktails. I'll tell you what you do. Fubo TV, flip it on your phone.
Oh, yeah.
I got it right on my phone. 140 plus live channel sports, shows, movies, news. You can do it at home too. Stream live TV from any device. Watch the most Chicago sports for the lowest price. And you can start watching right away with their 7-day free trial. Now that's a smart move right there. No contract, no cable, no hassle. Just sign up and start watching. Smooth stream, no hiccups, no buffering, any of that stuff. Watch local teams while traveling. 1,000 hours of cloud DVR included at no extra charge. What are you going to watch this week? Cubs baseball. We don't have a post-game show coming up on Friday. Mm-hmm. You could go out, enjoy the rest of this nice warm weather before it gets cold, and you can take the Cubs with you right on your phone, on your tablet, whatever you want. Take it in a cab. Take it on your scooter. Probably not a good idea.
Yeah, don't do that.
Take that back.
No, not a scooter.
But you can watch the Cubs on Marquee because Marquee is one of the channels right there on Fubo TV. Use the link in the description right here to sign up for 15% off your first month of Fubo Pro. So a 7-day free trial, and then you get 15% off your first month with Fubo Pro. So something to check out and consider.
My favorite viral videos I see on the internet sometimes are the ones where, like, these dudes are at this wedding and there's like, you see like 2 seconds of the people hanging out, dancing at the reception or whatever, and then the video pans over to like the group of dudes watching the sports on their cell phone. You know what they're doing it on? They're doing it on Fubo, all right?
That's right.
So you can be them. You know, I got to go to a couple weddings this summer because my friends just all keep getting married. And
keep that salmon jacket ready.
All right.
Salmon jacket and pink.
I got to get the salmon jacket out, but you know what? I'm going to get Fubo. That way I can watch the Cubs whenever I'm at the few weddings I have to go to. So,
wow. Yeah. And by the way, friend of the show, Jake Bunowski says Ryan's going to be giving off those young mogul vibes in his vest.
My Pins and Aces vest. Best of both worlds. I'm young, but I look old.
Vest,
older. You know?
Could even go sleeveless vest. Now that's a vibe that
just
not too many can. Just the vest.
Just vest, no shirt.
Just the vest. So not everybody can pull it off. It's a very Miami look, so you might want to save it for a road trip to Miami.
I want to see Stuck try to pull this off because I think he could do it.
You mean again?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Because no doubt I've certainly pulled it off more than once.
Well, I've never seen this. I'd like to see.
For the first time on the show, I want to see you pull it off.
A white leather vest down in Miami, no shirt.
Okay.
You get the Shady Rays on? Oh, boy.
Couldn't you see Javi pulling that off or Jake Arrieta? Couldn't you see Arrieta pulling up to a bar on South Beach in like a white vest, no shirt underneath it?
As long as it's Pins and Aces, yeah.
Flip-flops? Probably.
Yeah.
I don't know that Pins and Aces has the white vest, but they got a lot of cool stuff. I'll tell you.
All
right, so let me start this segment by making it very clear. We are putting out a projected 2024 CHGO Cubs lineup. All right? That doesn't mean we're saying this is going to be the lineup. We are saying right now, with players in the organization, this would be the type of roster you might see next season, depending on contracts. We're not saying they won't add somebody like Shohei Ohtani. We're not saying they won't add somebody at another position. We're not saying somebody else might get traded and brought into the team for some of these players. All very possible, probably likely in some scenarios. We're saying with players currently in the organization, this is how the Happ signing and mostly the Happ signing because he was going to be a free agent. Nico too, but really we're talking about the Happ signing yesterday. So I like what I've seen at the top, Hoerner, Swanson, Happ. Yeah. We will see, probably starting on Friday, where they put Seiya Suzuki.
I think it'll be fourth. I think that's a spot.
I wouldn't touch the first three right now because it's going well.
They're going so well. And Nico's hitting the ball well out of the line, the leadoff spot. Again, we're going to talk about it that as a leadoff hitter, you might like him to take some more walks, but the average is high. He's getting on base well. Like it's kind of one of those things where you don't want to fix something that's not broken. Like if he starts to struggle, and then maybe you see him, you take a few more pitches, a few more walks, whatever. That may come, but for right now he's doing well at the leadoff spot. Swanson and Happ, I think that's the top three that you like right now. And say when he mixes in there, I see him in the 4 spot, and with those 3 guys ahead of him, could be in line to come up with with the bases, with people on the bases every now and again.
I mean, we're talking about adding potential superstars to what we currently have. We don't know where that's going to come from, but let me tell you, Matt Mervis is off to a pretty good start. And while some people are meh on what he might be as a major league player, others are buzzing about him.
Yeah.
Buzzing about him.
Should we real quick, just for the people that aren't on YouTube, just run down the 9?
Let's do it. Let's go right down it. So if you're checking this out on podcast form, Nico Hoerner leading off, playing second. Then we have Dansby Swanson at short. Ian Happ in left. Now for 3 more years after this season. Seiya Suzuki in right under contract. We believe Matt Mervis will get to the majors this season and be ready to go next year. Right field is Suzuki. We put Mervis at DH because we think there may be another first baseman. Pete Crow Armstrong, we think the number 1 prospect in the organization, will be here next year. We put him in center field, his position. Trey Mancini has a 2-year deal, so we've got him over at first base. Now remember, Hosmer, we're not sure what's going to happen with Hosmer, but I believe Mervis is better suited most likely as a DH or a platoon at first. Patrick Wisdom, he's very inexpensive. If Patrick Wisdom has a great season, I could very easily see how he's the third baseman. Jan Gomes as the catcher. Tucker Barnhart has an option, correct?
He has a according to Fangraphs roster resource, Tucker Barnhart does have a 2024 player option.
Okay, so then we have this group of names underneath that projected lineup that could filter into here, or also guys that all of these names could be, for the most part, used as trade bait, some of them too. Now, Happ and Suzuki are no trade clauses, so I don't know who else has a no trade clause, but we know those 2 do. Brendan Davis, where would Brendan Davis fit into this mix? We may find out this season, depending on when he comes up. Christopher Morel, where does he fit into the mix? Could I see him being at third base? Well, of course we could see him being at third base.
Yeah, he's been playing some third in Iowa, so they've been giving him opportunities to get better over there. He's got a rocket arm.
Yeah, and I know we see the highlights of him. I haven't paid enough attention to see how he's doing with the just the regular plays, throws over from third to first. We know we've seen a bunch of his highlights of his rocket arm at third, and getting the soft ground balls and getting guys. We've seen the highlights. I wish I had paid better attention to how he is just doing regularly throwing the ball from third to first, because we knew that was an issue last year.
Right, absolutely. So as we sit here right now projecting this, Mancini, Mervis, I mean, we've kind of seen the flaws of Mancini at first base compared to Hosmer already this year. And I don't think Eric Hosmer will be on this roster next year. I mean, it's 1 year, and hell, at this point, I don't even, as great as he's been playing, all things considered, I don't even know if he'll be on this roster in August, to be honest with you.
Well, not if Mervis is playing well, because then you could trade him for something.
That's what I'm saying. Either that, or say he falls off, whatever. I'm not manifesting that. I'm just saying that he had, we've seen this time and time again with Eric Hosmer. Hell, with the Padres last year, he started off really well, and then next thing you know, he finds himself on the Red Sox later in the year, part of a trade. So I would lean to believe that Hosmer won't be here next year because of Mervis. And so you defensively at first base, Mancini or Mervis, I haven't seen enough of Mervis play defense to really tell you if it's a good idea, but all anyone has ever really said to me about Mervis as far as defense is that it needs work.
Yeah.
So
another thing. Sorry, go ahead.
That's a big deal. I know you can fill in guys at first base more often than not, but you have to remember we were gifted 10 really good defensive years from Anthony Rizzo and a lot of really good years defensively from Derek Lee.
Yeah.
So you in the amount of balls that they dug out from bad throws from short or third or wherever, I'm just saying it is kind of a big deal. You want to have a good defensive first baseman, so I'm hoping that Mervis gets better defensively. But if it's him and Mancini splitting time at first next year, not surprised. I'd probably get up for it.
Yeah, for Mervis, I was going to say, you mentioned Mervis and first base, and that's, from what I've heard as well, is just the defense isn't great. Like, that obviously needs work if he's going to be the first baseman of the future. I will also say, because Mancini has that next year, and if you let him take most of the reps at first base, at least until Mervis shows you he's solid defensively there, it also allows you, if Mervis is DHing for the most part, all he has to worry about is hitting, which we know at the big league level, like, hitting is the hardest thing to do. He can just focus on hitting. You know, he'll take his in-between work at first base, improving and whatever. Like, that's what guys do. But if he's DHing more often than not, that's just all reps of him just focusing on what he has to do at the plate. And for a guy who didn't get drafted in 2020, granted it was only 5 rounds, and who had struggled in 21, blew up last year, like, you still don't know for sure where he's going to fall in that. So if you're just letting him just mostly hit at the big league level, then you start to feel a little more comfortable with him, as long as he's succeeding in that role. And then after he does that is when you can, like, really, I think, start to see if he's your first baseman.
Yeah.
I think a DH spot for him, at least the start of the year where we're at now, is what's best
Yes.
for him.
I saw Niren, by the way, say, what about Seiya as a leadoff guy? I could see Seiya batting leadoff. And just right
talked
now,
about it a little
Nico's
in the
doing it. He's
offseason.
got 5 stolen bases.
Yeah.
Seiya hasn't played. I could see the order of the lineup changing greatly, but I do see Seiya in it. Obviously, Nico in it, Happ in it.
PCA is his prototypical leadoff hitter, and that we've seen in the minors at least. He's been batting the leadoff for South Bend, and I'm pretty sure in Tennessee. He's got speed, obviously, and he's not going to be a major home run threat, but he can hit.
But if we're projecting it for next year, the only reason I didn't want to put PCA as the leadoff guy instead of Nico or Seiya or something, I don't think you break a guy into the big leagues and say, here's the leadoff spot on a team that hopes to make the playoffs.
Right.
You potentially slide him lower in the lineup and let him be a second leadoff guy for the next round through the order, right? Like, that's where I see him. You could see him being used a lot of different ways. Brennan Davis is an interesting name because most people thought that when they didn't get the deal done with Happ during the offseason that, okay, Brennan Davis is slated to be your left fielder.
There's
next
eventually
year.
a route that Brennan Davis takes that. And
Changing
now-
of the guard in left field. Now you don't know what it is for Brennan Davis.
Yeah.
He was your top prospect till the injuries.
Yeah.
Doug, I'm doing Luke's bit here. He said Doug agrees with me. PCA might be our leadoff man for the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah,
but
that just
maybe
might be
not right away,
2025,
though,
and
right?
it may be the end of 2024.
Right.
We don't know.
Yeah.
I just love how I'm looking at this lineup, and I'm still just like, first base and third base. What do we do? Like, what? How do we feel about it?
Miguel Amaya might be the guy catching at this point too.
True.
Yeah.
The guy that we might see later in the year.
Yeah, so we have Gomes in there because he has a club option for next year, and then Barnhart, obviously, player option. So there's a chance for sure that both of them are back next year. Amaya's a wild card just because of his own injuries, right? Like, he was also one of the top prospects in the system and just hasn't had the health to really live up to that. He's in Double-A right now. I mean, there's a chance that he's up at some point this year if things go well. First of all, he has to prove that he can produce. Second of all, has to prove that he's healthy before that can happen. So, I mean, there's a realistic shot that he's actually on the 2024 opening day roster. There's also a realistic shot that the Cubs are going with Gomes and Barnhart again next year, which, again, as far as the defensive side goes, the Cubs have liked. The pitchers have nothing but the best things to say about working with Gomes and Barnhart. I mean, even yesterday, Stroman was quick to shout out Tucker and his game calling and what he was doing behind the plate yesterday for a third straight quality start for Stroman. But, you know, these pitchers all work really well with Gomes and Barnhart, and that's just the veteran defensive side in them. Of course, you'd like more offense from them, but for what they're giving you, maybe closer to league average offense is if that's the best case scenario, like, you'll take that for what they provide on that side. But so what I'm saying is, like, sure, would you like Miguel Amaya to just really blow up this year and be your opening day starter? Sure. But I think the Cubs are fine if, looking at 2024, Gomes and Barnhart are behind the plate.
I think the Cubs are
again.
probably higher on Moises Ballesteros right now than
But he's
they
not
are.
gonna, but he's not going to be
He's
20.
further away.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that to what I was saying was that because I think they're higher on Ballesteros, that Amaya, depending on whatever he does, if he does make his debut this year, I agree that Barnhart and Gomes still might be your regular guys, and maybe they use Amaya more as DH some days, or maybe they trade him. Maybe they do end up trading him if he can build some value. He's just got to prove he can stay on the field. That's always been Amaya's biggest thing the last few years, is just being able to stay on the field. So I saw he hit a home run in Tennessee the other day. That's great to hear. I all I'm saying is that when you look at these guys on the bottom of that graphic, was Brennan Davis, Christopher Morel, Canario, Miguel Amaya, and Nelson Velasquez. Outside of Morel and maybe Canario, it's a big maybe, I could see all those guys getting moved before next year.
Or other guys get moved and they get added to the mix. Like, just because you see Trey Mancini has another year left on his deal doesn't mean he couldn't have a good season this year and make him attractive at the end of the season or an off season for another team to do the same
does, again, according to Roster Resource on Fangraphs, if Mancini reaches 350 plate appearances this season, he can opt out. So if he
may take advantage of that, and you
exactly.
may. So I see somebody in the chat mention Crow Armstrong at 7. Yeah, I could see that moving down to where Mancini is. There's a lot of variations of this. Michael Collada says still not enough power. Well, it's real easy to change some of that in here when you look at it and say, all right, where would the power come from in a perfect world? Well, if you put Shohei Ohtani as your DH,
sure.
now, right? Shohei Ohtani completely changes the lineup.
Yeah.
One name I didn't put on the list is Owen Casey. He's at Double-A. He hit 3 home runs last night. Would it be too early at the beginning of next season? Yes, probably. But by the end of 2024, if he just crushes it at Double-A this year, could you see him spending just a little bit of time at Triple-A? Well, that's a place with power. Matt Mervis could potentially give you that power. Canario could give you that power if he's able to recover from the injury.
I wonder, just because the Cubs have a set outfield right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't see Owen Casey being brought up this season at any point, but the Cubs have a set outfield starting rotation like right now, or not rotation, sorry, just a starting outfield in Bellinger, Suzuki, and Happ.
For
and
sure.
the way things are going, that center field spot, like left and the corner outfields are set, but that center field spot is PCA's. So there's not a lot of at-bats for Owen Casey, and that's what you want for a guy that's still really young. So I would kind of disagree. I think unless he somehow outplays PCA and like I don't know if they would even be projected as a center fielder. I mean, PCA is projected to be a Gold Glove center fielder, so it's probably not even possible. DH helps with that, but like it may just be in his best interest, or the best interest of his development, if they just leave him in AAA, even if he's kind of smoking the ball down there. Like, just they need, now that Happ has re-signed, the outfield mix it's deep, but where those at bats are going to come from for those young guys makes me think that a guy as young as Owen Casey may just spend a few more time at AAA while they kind of sort all that stuff out.
He is the guy we've seen projected by a lot of the prospect experts as saying he may have the most power in the entire organization. Like, if people talk about Mervis and Canario and where the home runs could come from, Casey might be the guy with the most power. So again, when you start to go, if you have to go after a superstar, like the superstar for Shohei, if you have to, and I'm not saying this is the way to go, but if you have to trade for Shohei Ohtani, don't know if that's even realistic, but if it is, we've all penciled in PCA, but a team might want PCA, and then Casey becomes your center, like future center.
He hasn't played center, you know?
Or they may want, I didn't finish, or they may want Owen Casey because they see the guy with the most power in the organization. They may, like trading Canario, while everybody says that's a likely scenario because now you've signed Happ and they have a lot of outfielders, you'd also sort of be selling low on him because he's coming. You'd have to let him show that he's healthy and fully recovered. or you're not going to get full value out of the player in a trade.
Yeah.
Doug asked me a question in the chat just a few minutes ago. He says something along the lines of, do I think the Cubs are just kind of hoarding all these prospects in AAA to keep their values inflated in preparation for the talks to obtain Ohtani in a trade, perhaps? Why showcase them struggling with breaking balls, etc.? I mean, don't let a guy dream about it, man. Perhaps, maybe. I only think the Cubs are going to actually try and trade for Ohtani if they're in it. Like maybe. They have the prospect depth to be able to do it, but do they have the best prospects? I mean, they're not ranked in the top 5 yet. I think they can enter the top 5 of top 5 or top farm systems by the end of the year. And the only reason I really say that is because of all the people who say that they are en route to be able to do that. Jim Callis is a great example. He has said that he thinks that they could climb the rankings this year with the guys they have. Cade Horton just threw 2 really good innings in his professional debut yesterday. I mean, they have all kinds of dudes down there, which is, I think Greg's going to sleep in the chat keeps saying, I don't know what to do with my hands because of how deep this farm is. And that's a great feeling to have. So when people, like we talked about yesterday related to the Happ extension, you're talking about, where are these outfield guys going to play now? It's like, well, they have so much flexibility now that they can move some of these guys for someone like Shohei Ohtani or, Matt Chapman if you want a higher level third baseman. Even though Patrick Wisdom as a supporter, I'm okay with him, but let's be real, Matt Chapman's a lot better than him. Just whoever. I'm just saying that's the awesome thing about the farm right now is they have so many dudes that they could move to get a couple impact players if they really wanted to. And we've talked about with the free agent class this coming offseason not being that great, maybe that's the route they have to go. And specifically with these outfielders, the only outfielders on the Cubs farm that I'm like, you got to keep is PCA and Alcantara.
Well, Barb called me bum of the week for even mentioning trading PCA. I'm just
Those are the two that
if you had to trade to get somebody as elite as Shohei Ohtani,
yes,
they would probably want PCA in the deal. And I would do that deal as long as it didn't include 7 other prospects that were really high, because I don't want to delete the farm system and then sign him to the $500 million deal. I'd rather sign him to the $500 million deal. But if you told me the only way to get Ohtani is to trade some of your best prospects and sign him to the $500 million deal, which could be the case, I personally would be willing to include PCA as long as the rest of the list was shorter.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying.
I can't say
instead of your 5
say
through 11. If the one makes it 1 and 10,
if they want 12 prospects that are in your top 20, I'm not doing that. I'd rather give you my number 1 prospect and my number 6 and number 7.
I personally don't think that a trade like that's going to happen with Ohtani being a rental. If it would have happened, this is the mistake, and I said this last year. Them making this mistake of not trading him at the deadline last year only is going to bring his value down, no matter how great he is, because he's going to be a rental anyway. And I don't think he's going to sign an extension the moment you trade him. And so you're going to have to go to free agency with him anyway and try and get that deal done. So, again,
rental's a crazy idea for some team. You're going to have to give up so much for a 2-month rental that I just don't know. It only makes sense for a team that thinks the only way we can't win this World Series if Ohtani's on the team that we're competing against.
Right.
Which teams value their prospects so much right now that I don't know that some team's going to say, you know what, we're an Ohtani away, and we will certainly 100% win the World Series with him.
Right. The Angels are first place right now, so
and the Angels,
playing well.
The Angels may say we need to hold on to him.
Yeah. It's gonna play out is very fun to watch because it's gonna be one of the most entertaining free agent frenzies for one particular guy, maybe in our lifetimes, even bigger than
Aaron Judge.
Yeah.
Aaron Judge.
If you thought this last winter was crazy, imagine a winter with Shohei Ohtani.
This winter, it's Ohtani and then everyone else. It's all genuinely
Ohtani.
Really is.
So it was going to be Ohtani and Happ. The Cubs have taken care of that part.
I guess to round it back, would I, if I'm the Cubs, would I trade for Ohtani in season? It would have to be like an insane reasoning of, we're like the team has to be leading the division and doing all these things.
Not even that. It has to come with the contract. It has to come with him giving up free agency and signing the deal at the same time.
If you have to give up one of your top prospects but not have to give 7 dudes along with it, then perhaps consider it. But PCA and Alcantara, to me, like I personally would not want to do it for Ohtani, but if it means not having to send 7 other guys with him, then I would at least probably get on board with it eventually after hearing the other dudes that they would want. But so what I'm saying is I would trade anyone for Ohtani.
It would be expensive.
Yeah. What I'm saying is I would trade anyone for Ohtani, but PCA and Alcantara would be the two that I'm like, I'll do it, but this is going to suck. But with the outfielders that they have right now, you feel like on the Major League team, you feel good about that. And if they did trade PCA, then maybe they view Bellinger as a guy to be here more than next year. You know what I mean? I know the results aren't technically there, and we talked about that yesterday on yesterday's show. But I think he's trending up.
I still don't know if I see them re-signing him
again,
or even trying.
I just listed like 5 different scenarios in like 2 minutes. Mm-hmm. So again,
this much we know: whoever's in the outfield next year for the Cubs, they're going to enjoy the new LED lights that the players are enjoying this season.
They were pretty cool.
Beautiful ComEd, huh? Nice, changed your look out there, didn't it?
It looked like a day game.
You actually see the ivy.
Yeah.
When it grows.
All because of the ComEd Energy
Homestead,
Efficiency Program, probably.
Yep.
Which is committed to helping families and businesses in the communities they serve, helping manage energy usage and lower energy bills now and into the future, Luke.
That's right. ComEd offers a wide variety of incentives on lighting and other efficiency upgrades to commercial, industrial, public sector customers of all sizes across the territory. ComEd also offers these really great facility assessments that can help you find energy-saving opportunities. Maybe it's an HVAC system, a commercial kitchen equipment, or industrial processes.
Oh, how does it work, Luke?
Well, an authorized engineer will work with you to develop a detailed assessment plan specific to just your goals and your needs. They can be done in person or virtually. They last about 2 hours, and then in about 3 to 4 weeks, customers receive a report detailing energy efficiency projects they can start working on right away. Each recommendation includes estimated energy savings, cost savings, project costs, potential incentives, simple payback. If you own a business, don't sleep on this. Get started saving money and energy today. For energy-saving tips, lighting incentives, or to schedule your free facility assessment, go to ComEd.com/poweringbiz.
ComEd.com/poweringbiz, Luke.
That is correct. Schedule it today, Cody. You won't regret it.
Yeah, and you mentioned the lights, and we were talking about this on Monday, the first day they turned on those lights, that Monday night game, and it almost blinded me. I was standing on the field, almost blinded me. Tuesday and Wednesday, I was good, but Monday I didn't have my Shady Rays, and I wish I would have. Let me throw them on right now. You can all see my Shady Rays. I believe they're called the Black Timber. But Shady Rays, yeah, we love Shady Rays here.
Yeah.
Take on the sun with gear built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered for the warm weather ahead with premium polarized shades at an affordable price. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company that offers a world-class product that's just as good as any expensive pair I've ever worn, Luke's ever worn, Cody's ever worn, that we've ever worn. They have durable frames and extremely clear optics for outdoor adventures, and that's not all. Shady Rays offers the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair of sunglasses is backed by lost and broken replacements. If you lose or break your pair, even on day one, they told us they will send you a brand new pair, no questions asked. Wear your Shady Rays with confidence because they have your back long after you purchase them. Together with their customers, Shady Rays is providing much-needed support to nonprofit partners around the U.S. through Shady Rays Impact, from building play sets for pediatric cancer patients to providing young adults with MS the outdoor adventure of a lifetime. Shady Rays is making an impact in your community and others like it now and for years to come. If you don't love your Shady Rays, exchange them for a new pair or return them for free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop. Their team always has your back. And exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Go to shadyrays.com and use code CHGO for 50% off 2+ pairs of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades that are rated 5 stars by over 200,000 people. Shady Rays. Love them.
The senior circuit in the chat with a couple classic comments during your ad read there, Ryan. Barb says, trade PCA, re-sign Bellinger. Are they on edibles? I'm not saying trade PCA. I'm saying if it took trading PCA to land Shohei Ohtani, then yes, I'd be willing to listen.
Yeah.
Do I see PCA as a more likely center fielder of the future for the Cubs? I sure do.
If you're not willing to trade PCA to get Shohei Ohtani on, not for a rental, but for long term,
then you need to try some edibles.
I don't know.
Michael Collada says, if Ricketts signs Ohtani, I will retire. We stinks.
He also said if they sign Ohtani, he'll sit in the bleachers naked on opening day.
He did say that in the chat earlier, which made me laugh.
Collada.
Then Barb now just says, hi, Rhonda. Stuckey wants to trade PCA. This is selective hearing, everybody.
Also, Mike Dubs, he showed up late.
Yeah, he was getting a crown because he's the king of the chat.
Yeah.
True.
Hashtag Mike Dubs.
35 days of Mike Dubs.
What Gerard?
And Gerard and the Duke.
And the Duke, yes.
Our 3 favorite people.
Yes.
And Fernando's up there. He just does it in smaller increments.
I'll say one thing about what the chat has said that I think we can all agree with. It's just nice to be able to finally project this team in the future, because I felt like last year you couldn't really do it. Like you said earlier, we're like exploring last year. Mm-hmm. We're trying to figure out who's going to fix, who's going to be part of the next core, and we just spent 20 minutes at the beginning of this show talking about the core that they have now that looks like they have, found a way to piece together, and we're dreaming about Ohtani, like realistically dreaming about Ohtani the last 20 minutes now. Like, to me, that's fun, and that's something that we really haven't been able to do for a while. Obviously, really last year, and then, even in 2021 when we knew that with the trade deadline looming with those guys all in their walk years, we didn't know what the year after's roster was going to look like. Right now, it's an exciting time to be a Cubs fan, in my opinion, because you got these dudes, and you got the kids coming, and you got an owner who has showed that they will spend money when need to. I know Collada won't agree with me on that, but that's what I think.
Well, so. The signings have the Nico Hoerner signing and the Ian Happ signing and the Dansby Swanson signing. Those 3 specifically, because Seiya was last year. But these 3 have changed the view of the future. There are still a lot of questions, but the view of the future is brighter. We were going to spend a whole season thinking about, well, what happens with Ian Happ? Why are you going to trade a guy if you developed him and he finally got to an all-star level and a Gold Glove level? Why are you going to trade the guy at the end of the season? That seems like it'd be taking a step back. Nico Hoerner, earlier in the chat this year, we already had people saying, well, they'll never sign him, so he's only going to be there till he gets pretty good, and then he's going to be gone. Well, that's not the case anymore.
He did it for both.
And Dansby, too.
And those 3, and Dansby's obviously later, but like Happ, Nico, Seiya, Dansby, all 4 are signed through 2026. Jameson Tyone, same thing. Do we have that quote?
Yes, we have a quote board from
Jed Hoyer.
Jed Hoyer kind of talking about how we got into the whole idea of a projected lineup. And Jed said to reporters yesterday, including Ryan, you can see a situation where those top 4 guys in the lineup are all guys that are all prime age. That's something, by the way, that Theo's always wanted to do along with Jed. They're all signed at least through 2026. I'm really thrilled to have that stability. And so this was certainly a priority to get these deals done. I didn't know if I believed him. And so maybe that makes me a doubter just because of past. Like, I didn't know if the deals were really a priority to them, but he's right. It does give them stability and security to now focus on the future, right, Ryan? Like I said, you have very high floors with those guys, and they're in their prime all through 2026.
Yeah, and like we talked at the top of the show, like those may not be your top 4 players a few years from now, depending on what who develops, what the Cubs bring in. But right now, those are your top 4 in your lineup. Those are your core 4. Those are the 4 guys you're building this team around. That's your foundation. And looking at it from the outside, like you feel good for the Cubs about that 4 that they have. Like I think that's a solid 4. It may not be the best 4. It's a solid 4 for them to start. Like they're not. This isn't the World Series team right now, right? Like this is the team that's giving fans hope that they could actually make the playoffs, and then they build more from here.
This is the team that we fall in love with at some point, and then we get hurt at the very end of the season because they ain't going to win the World Series. But we will still have lots of hope going to the offseason, hoping to take that next step. So I am like trying to manifest the 2020 or the 2015 Cubs energy into this team.
Yeah.
That's what I want this team to be. I want them to be something close to that. I don't know if they'll get insanely hot in August and win 97 or 98 games, however many it was, and somehow end up in the NLCS. I don't know if that will happen. That's to sit here in April right now and try to project that is insanely it's improbable. Can't do it. But to just have that sort of vibe, have some young guys come up. Like we look at this roster right now, it's like there's no way this roster is going to look like this in June or July, in my opinion. There's going to be some dudes who will come up and maybe make an impact. You know what I mean? So I'm hoping that some of them can help propel this team up a little bit more and give us all a little bit more hope of the future.
Rhonda and Barb want to trade for Javi Baez at third because they still don't have a third baseman in the future. Listen, every position's not going to be filled at one time. Also, do I think Ohtani's coming to the Cubs? I don't know. But I can see if I can look into the future now and see a picture where the Cubs still get to a great team, even if they don't go get Ohtani, okay, because of the way they've started to add pieces, the way some of the prospects look, whether or not they're coming up here or being used as trade bait in the future. There's different ways to get to it.
Speaking of bias, I was watching Detroit and the Blue Jays last night at the bar. They had the game on at the bar I was at.
Oh, okay, all right.
I think it was on. They might have been showing it on MLB Network. I don't know.
On.
I was watching Detroit and the Blue Jays last night, and I mean, Javi is off to such a horrific start offensively. I'm sorry. I miss the vibes. I miss like the swag, but I do not miss him as a player. It would be very like Jed Hoyer though for them to be able to swing bring him back for absolutely nothing type deal. Like his value is as low as it's ever been.
Except for a lot of money.
What about Chris Bryant having a couple good years with the Rockies, and then the Rockies eat the deal and trade him like Arenado for nothing in a bag of balls, and it's the Cubs on the receiving end of a ridiculous deal.
Well, as dumb as the Rockies are, I wouldn't be surprised, I guess, if that happened. I mean, the fact that they sent a couple washing machines to Colorado, or the Cardinals sent a couple washing machines for Arenado. It's still like it's the biggest fleece job I've ever seen in my entire life.
Oh, now we went negative.
Omar said the Cubs should fire Jed Hoyer right after signing Ian Happ to a contract. So I think that's where we should call it a day.
I will always love Javi. He's always going to be a big part of like Cubs fandom. But I'm sorry, we all like of all of them that we need to move on from the most, it's him. I'm sorry, I'm always going to think that.
All right, here's the deal. Going to Wrigley Field has become a thing again, because the Cubs are fun to watch. This team so far through 11 games, fun to watch. They have some players that you know are going to be there in the future because they've signed them to extensions, 7-year deals, shorter deals, but you have guys that you know you can go get the jersey and go root for them at Wrigley Field. It's a fun team. So if you're going to want to use Game Time, if you're buying those tickets for those events, it really shouldn't be stressful, and Game Time's an easy way to go get your tickets. Yep. For the cheapest price, you get the best deals on seats you didn't think you could afford. What was it Northwestern Illinois you went to this fall was a good one. Ryan used it for some Bears tickets.
I did.
I went to I went to Illinois, Iowa, down in Champaign using Game Time.
And
I went to the Big Ten tournament because of Game Time.
I just think one of the cool things about the site is not only can you get great deals through their website, you can also go to the picture and look and see what the seats actually look like. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's crucial at a place like Wrigley Field. Yeah. You don't want to end up with a ticket where you're behind a beam, or slightly behind a beam where you have to watch you don't want to have to watch the pitch start Hunter. And then go and slide to the other side of the pole to see the batter.
Our friend at DMVR Rocky, Susie Hunter, said the one time she came to Wrigley, she got stuck behind the pole. She should have used Game Time.
Use Game Time.
seat images.
So that's one of the
come
reasons. Fastest growing app for tickets in the country. So right now, snag your tickets without the stress. Use Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account and use the code CHGO. That's right. We got a code now. CHGO. $20 off your first purchase. That cuts the price.
Oh, yeah.
You go out and get some late-minute tickets for that next homestand at Wrigley Field, or maybe you want to hit the road, buy some tickets, go out west this weekend.
$20 off.
See them play the Dodgers. Terms apply, of course. Create an account, redeem the code CHGO, $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Everybody here loves it. I know it's used on a regular basis. Highly recommend it. You're going to want to do it maybe this weekend for some tickets. Maybe it's the next homestand. Either way, you're going to want to do it. We will see you for the next live post-game show. Brendan and Corey will have one coming up on Sunday.
They'll actually be live on YouTube.
It will be live on YouTube on Sunday.
We'll be back on Monday. We'll be out in social and on YouTube and different places creating content as the Cubs take on the Dodgers. You
Sunday
got
will be
Steele on the mound tomorrow.
Sunday will be after the game, right? Just so people know when.
Right
to
after the
tune
game.
in. Okay.
Just like a post-game show. And they'll be ready to go live and ready.
So, Barb, remember
Barb, you're
to
doing it
log
live.
on to YouTube it as soon as the Cubs game is over.
On Sunday.
That because she I always say Barb because she keeps asking, how
Is
do
it
I
live?
find out when they're live?
It's after the game.
It's after the game. In
or
season,
if it's at
after the
1:20.
game.
Check it at 1:20.
Yeah, on an off day, 1:20 on off day. So you came in at the right time today. But Sunday after the game, Corey and Brendan, and they'll talk about some nerdy shit and pitching and stuff.
Yeah.
And then we'll bring the vibes
Graphs.
back on Monday.
That's right.
Brendan's going to have some grass for the YouTube show.
We
Oh,
will
I'm
have
sure
plenty
he
of
will.
those. Thanks for dropping in to check out the CHGO Cubs podcast presented by DraftKings, America's top-rated sportsbook. Download the app. Use the promo code CHGO. Spread our name. Tell your friends. Tell your
Oh,
family. Check us out. Give us a
Tell
shot.
your ex.
And until then, fly the W or light it. Either way.
Light the W.